All right, the NBA season is only a few days away, and Beds is joining me this week to do an NBA preview podcast. We're picking our top 5 storylines for the season. We're picking our Eastern and Western Conference champs. We're picking our finals champs. We're picking our MVP for the season. It's a great conversation. I think you'll really enjoy it. This is the Randy Forcier podcast. Do me a favor. Please like and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, like the Randy Forcier podcast Facebook page. And then also a lot of you will see that I've recently started a new Instagram page for the Randy Forcier podcast at the Randy Forcier podcast. Give that a follow if you can. I'd really appreciate it. Enjoy the podcast. All right, we're back again with my boy Beds doing an NBA preview podcast. How you doing, pal?
What's up? I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to do the NBA today.
Me too. Season starts next week, so now's the time to do it. Pretty big NBA guy. I know some people don't love it, but always been a huge fan, so I'm definitely fired up for the season.
You know, it's like C's coming off a loss. The landscape changed a little bit. We got some trades. I'm sure we're going to discuss it here, but a couple little things happened to the Celtics. So super geeked up coming into the year. A couple injuries now. What's this going to look like? So
yeah,
I'm ready to dive in, buddy.
So before we get started, we should address our homerism from the NFL podcast and talk about avoiding doing that this time. I think we picked the Pats to win one playoff game, which is pretty funny in hindsight, but I don't know that the Celtics are on the same level as the Pats, but we just got to be aware of not going too crazy on the Celtics.
You know, the thing is, too, is like we're looking for people to take us pretty serious here. So, guys, everybody watching, like we are taking this serious. What are the Pats 2-3 right now? Amazing, fantastic win against the Lions.
Great game.
So, yeah, I mean, just sniffing the playoffs right now. So we'll see what happens.
We have to be cautious when we both pick the Celtics to win the NBA championship at the end of the podcast.
Is that where
I don't know if I'm
leaning?
there.
Is that where you're leaning?
It is not. So we'll get to that. The plan for today is similar to the NFL podcast, where we're going to just run through our 5 most hyped up, excited storylines that we have for the season. We'll go in order. Beds will start, and then we will talk about some predictions that we have for this upcoming season. We'll have fun. We'll track them, and we'll see who is closer at the end. So, Beds, why don't you get started with your number 5 most excited storyline of the season?
LBJ, man. You know, I think it was 1986. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar set the league record for most points ever as an NBA player. I remember Magic Johnson jumping in his arms. Like, Magic is just always so excited about everything. And I just, even though it was a Laker, it was a super cool, moment because it's all-time leading scorer. So LBJ is 1,325 points behind Kareem right now. So he's 37 years old. I think Kareem played into his early 40s, so he's ahead of Kareem's pace. LeBron just, re-upped for 2 years. I think he's got this year, so he's going to be 38 in December. I mean, dude, I was just looking at his last couple of years. I mean, the guy is a freak. He's a unicorn. I mean, he's got some games played issues as he's gotten a little older.
Yeah, he's had a couple seasons where he hasn't played even close to the full 82. But, I mean, he's 37 years old. And he averaged 27 points last year, which was pretty amazing for his age.
It's so insane. So it's like, so then you get into a couple things. You're like, how many games is he going to play this year?
I think the projections were that he was going to pass it somewhere in the new year, somewhere in that January mark, maybe into February if he has a below expected year. But it's definitely going to happen, right? Assuming he doesn't have a catastrophic injury. He's definitely breaking the record this year.
And the thing is like 1,600. I think the lowest point total he's had was 2 years ago, and I think he played like 40-something games. I mean, his lowest point total in the season has never been below 1,600.
Below what he needs.
So where are we at? It's like you said, it's probably a little bit into the spring. I don't know. What do you think? February? It's probably going to hit?
that's what the projections say. So I have no reason to think that he's not going to be in shape. He's not going to be up to what he's been doing the past couple of years. And he's an animal. He trains all the time and people's bodies are different now than when Bird and Magic played and those guys. I mean, there's a real big emphasis on eating well and working out, and I think he takes it pretty seriously. And I think he wants to be the NBA's leading scorer. So I'm sure he's working hard just to get there, because I don't know how good their team is, truthfully.
So you're a big LeBron James guy?
Yeah. You know, my brother makes fun of me. He says I'm a LeBron guy too. I don't know if I'm a LeBron guy as much as I really just enjoy watching people that are the best at what they do. And to me, it's been pretty clear for a while LeBron's one of those guys. So I understand that some of the quirkiness about him, some of the ways he handles situations, it's kind of annoying, but he really is one of the best of all time.
Well, so I think where I was going with that is I did this with MJ. I didn't appreciate MJ until those last 2 years with the Bulls. I did the Washington Wizards thing, so he had a throwback game every now and again, which was cool.
Yeah.
Kobe, here we are with another Laker. Kobe was not for me at all. And then those last couple of years, I was a big Kobe guy. So have never really been a LeBron guy, if you will. But now it's I'm sniffing this record. I'm kind of appreciating the body of work. It's you see the Insta videos with him working out and doing all the crazy stuff. And you mentioned the nutrition. How much longer can you look at the back of this basketball card and just see 25 plus a game consistently? So I don't want to go off on the topic, but it's all right, LeBron, you finally got me. I'm locked in. I want you to play 82 games. I want you to score 2,000 points this year, have your league record, and then, it's probably going to be another 3 years of it. It's who the hell's going to catch him?
I know. I think there's 6 guys that have averaged over 27 points their whole career, and he's one of them. I think he's 27.2. I don't know that he'll be able to maintain that through as long as he'll probably play, but it'll be interesting to see, dude. I think that record's going to be pretty far out of reach. Next couple guys that have a shot would have been KD, but he missed so much time, and I can't imagine he plays as long as LeBron does, so he's pretty much out. Then after that, there's no one that's really even close.
KD's kind of on my radar, but it's I don't even know if that dude actually likes playing basketball as much as he used to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It seems like he's just always negative on everything. With his foot problems and stuff, you're how much longer is he going to go? Maybe that's just the lens I'm viewing, but, anybody behind him, I really can't pull anything right now. You got Tatum scoring a bunch of points as a young guy. He's going to fill it through his 20s. He's got Deuce. He's probably going to want to kind of see his son grow up and maybe be around while Deuce comes in the league, if Deuce is good enough. You know what I mean? So it's you start talking about that stuff and you're man, is LeBron going to put enough points up where it's here we are in 2022, finally talking about a record that's probably going to be beaten from 1986. Is that our next run,
Yeah, another 30, 40-year stretch of this being the record. Doesn't seem that unreasonable to think it'll last for a while, but I don't know that anyone that's playing now really has a clear shot at it. No one's putting up that many crazy numbers early in their career that you would say that they're definitely on pace. Who knows, though? There's guys like Luka, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point. Guy has a long career ahead of him, puts up some points. You never know. But it's the longevity piece of LeBron that's always been the amazing part. There's guys that can put up points for stretches, but this guy's been doing it for so long. It's pretty remarkable.
So, big LeBron guy.
A huge LeBron guy now. It's nice. Good to hear. I'll remember that on our text strings.
So that's my number 5. What do you got?
We're just going to kind of finish up this Laker train because they were actually my number 4 item. It wasn't so much LeBron as it was the Lakers, because it's remarkable how bad they are. And I'm interested. I think the only thing they have really going for them is this LeBron record that they're going to be chasing, and they'll play prime time a bunch, play Christmas, all that sort of stuff. But I am interested to see if they even make the playoffs. That's got to be their goal at this point. They could have a year as expected and still be the 9th, 10th best team in the West and not even make the playoffs, which is pathetic.
And it's you started to read some of that Bronny stuff, LBJ wanted to play. You knew his contract was up this year, and I've kind of been sitting back wondering, is he going to extend? Is LeBron a money guy at this point? You know what I mean? Or is he sort of going to position himself to be able to be a free agent, to maybe place himself somewhere, to be with his son, if that's a factor for him? Or throwing that aside, like you said, looking at that roster, LeBron actually had some personal flexibility to kind of bounce out of that. Mm-hmm. And, now he hasn't. He just re-upped for 2 years.
He's an LA guy now. His family's there. His kids are kind of entrenched over there. I don't think he's looking to leave. Obviously, he wants to win his 5th championship and be in that same conversation with Kobe and somehow get the 6th. I don't know how realistic that is. I think that stuff's important, but he's a LA guy and plays for the most prestigious team in the league. So I can't imagine he's in a rush to get out of that situation, despite how bad the team is. It really hinges on Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
And whether or not we're getting Anthony Davis from a couple years ago when they won that championship and before, where he was a real beast, or the one that we've had the past couple of years that's just shooting threes, not really rebounding the same way. Health has always been an issue for him, so you really never know. You expect he's going to miss some stretch of the season, but I think their season kind of lives or dies with what Anthony Davis can provide.
Anthony's such a unit. I love that kid. Like, you don't get bigs like that can play physical. He can play from the perimeter. He can move his feet well, although he kind of gets some lower body injuries every now and again. But when they were positioning to move him over to LA, you remember Boston was in it and a couple other teams could offer up, and it wasn't even a thing probably behind the scenes. All they had to do was wait until that offseason and just acquire him and pay for him. But that trade was forced, and you got rid of Ingram. Subsequently, other guys had to leave to open up salary slots for that. To your point, you have AD, you have LeBron James. How much longer does that last? The unicorn area that we just rambled about. And it's like, you got Russell Westbrook. Like, how does that even fit?
Yeah,
what does that even do for you? Nothing.
It doesn't.
And maybe in hindsight, if you got somebody and you're having a couple of drinks and you're talking to the guy that's running the Lakers, you might admit, Jesus, I wish I waited to the off season, because he'd have Ingram. He'd have Kuzma. He'd have a couple other guys. And the picks.
But then even the year they won it, they had a guy like Alex Caruso, who's a pretty good defensive player, and gone. They just couldn't even hold it together, their championship team. So I guess that's basketball, right? There's so much money being thrown around and people moving all over the place, but you would expect them to be able to put some more competitive players on the floor and make a run at least being in that top half and getting one series at home. But here we are. A win would be them just sneaking in somehow. So anyways, that's way too much Lakers talk to start. But they're definitely, for a team that's not that good, they obviously have one of the best players ever. Definitely excited to see how that season plays out. Had to get put on the list somewhere. Wanted to put it on the 5th spot.
Yep. So
what about 4 for you, my man?
I called it running it back.
Okay.
So if you had a guess, it's probably the Brooklyn Nets.
Really? Okay. I would have thought that just from that.
Dude, I just don't know what they're doing in Brooklyn. Like, if you're KD, so multiple things happen, and from what I've read and sort of confirmed stuff that I've followed, allegedly confirmed, like, it was basically Kyrie and KD saying to, I believe it's Marks that was running, actually Marks was the coach, I can't remember who the general manager was. They basically said, we're coming to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do if you're the GM? Yeah, sure, all right, I'll take you 2 guys.
Easy. They're just lucky that they happen to be in Brooklyn. And that's something else.
What does that look like now? I mean, you had Kyrie sort of with the COVID stance and all that stuff, so he was like in and out of the lineup based on that stuff. KD comes over, he's recovering from a surgery, so you don't even get him year one. Mm-hmm. So then you had Harden's extracted. Now you're taking Simmons. It's like, I don't even know how any of that makes sense. I mean, it's almost like a Lakers thought process, too. It's like, how do those guys fit with each other? Because Kyrie is such an awesome point guard. Simmons is a point. He can't shoot, so what are you going to have him do?
They just had to get rid of Harden last year. That was the whole thing with Harden, and the only reasonable person to get back was Simmons. But it's too bad they couldn't make it work with those other 3 guys, because those guys were studs. But, I mean, Kyrie gets hurt all the time. KD's at that point where he's getting hurt all the time. If you made those signings and trade for Harden and all that stuff and simulated it 100 times, this is like the worst case possible scenario of how it plays out, I think.
And I think the thing is, too, is the dismantling of the whole trust the process, if you will, was Harden knowing enough, I need to get the hell out of here. Because behind the scenes, he's probably seeing this. He's seeing Kyrie, how that is. That COVID stuff aside, it's like you've always heard how kind of a different person he is. So I would think that Harden is like, man, get me the F out of here, which he did. Then KD subsequently wants to. But, like, if you're a GM and you know that KD wants to leave and he's a really good scorer, but he's had some leg issues and he's not getting any younger. It's like, so what are you going to do if you're like the guy running the Celtics? Let me give you Jalen. Let me give you multiple firsts. Let me give you some of these prospect guys I have on the roster. It's like, no, why would I do that? So it's funny how ironically these guys chose their landing spot. Now they can't extract themselves because of themselves.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and KD saw it. He put out that trade request, and no one could give the pieces that the Nets were gonna take to make it happen. And he just kind of had to quietly go back to the team and act like they came to some mutual agreement. It's kind of funny. I mean, what an awful situation to be in for those guys and Steve Nash. I mean, honestly, Brooklyn's not even on my list because we smoked them so bad in the playoffs last year, and I just hope they absolutely suck this year. But who knows? We'll see.
Okay, so how about this before I move on from it? Chris, why did you put that at number 4? Well, because I hate the way that Kyrie left the Celtics. I hope those guys finish last this year in the Eastern Conference and then go on a slump and finish last the next 5 years.
Grudge Chris is out. I love it. Same here, man. That guy, he sucks. He sucks. I mean, like you said, COVID stuff aside, I just think back to when he was sitting on that stool on the floor at the Garden talking about, if you guys will have me, I'll resign, end my career, all that stuff. It's just a bunch of garbage. He sucks. So.
Man, it's just so weird. It's like, yeah, I love you, I'm going to marry you, and then like 7 minutes later, oh man, I want to go with that girl.
Yeah,
so
and then the way he performed in that last playoff series, just totally nailed it in. Didn't do anything, no effort, just garbage. Hope for bad things for Brooklyn. I loved sweeping them last year. I don't know if that'll be the case this year, but I loved it last year, and honestly, I'm not that scared of them. There are other teams in the East that will get through that I'm a little bit more scared of. So, for me, number 4, I think this one might be a little bit of a surprise for you, but it's the Victor Wembanyama watch. And who's tanking for him? Have you seen this guy lately?
Interesting scenario, huh? Like 7+ feet.
7'5", fluid, shoots, defends. I think he's 18 right now. French kid. And people say he's like the most clear number 1 pick since freaking, 30 years ago. So people will be tanking for him. And the teams that I have tanking, I'm looking at some over-unders on the win total. It's San Antonio with 24.5 wins, Utah with 24.5, Wizards with 35.5, Sacramento with the same, Trailblazers with 39.5. So any one of those teams would have a shot at him. I could see them all tanking for him, give themselves the best chance.
That's so Danny Ainge, by the way. Like, you bring this kid's name up. Like, when Danny's been tearing this apart incrementally with the Rudy trade and Mitchell going to the Cavs, I'm like, why is he doing this? He's accumulating picks. So I hop on the Google machine, hoopshype.com, which is a big source for me for the last 15 years. I start watching this kid's film, and I'm like, this is KD with a couple more inches, with some more meat on his bone. It's like, how do you stop that, dude?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. One team that kind of strikes me on that list is the Spurs, right? Seems like a good place to end up where you're not in some big city. Not that, Salt Lake City is one of those big cities, but, San Antonio is one of those smaller markets in the NBA. Great coach, always produced great players. Could be a pretty cool spot for him to land in. But I'm interested to see how it plays out. I'm sure there'll be a ton of talk about it. This guy really only got on my radar in the past few weeks. So it seems like he'll be on everyone's radar throughout the course of the season, as this is something people talk about.
Him in San Antonio is sort of the comparable to that of Zion in New Orleans.
Yeah.
It's like Zion to me, I was thinking New York, some big market, because those guys had a shot at the number 1. And it's kind of funny how he ended up there. So sometimes you kind of wonder what that matters.
Yeah, I guess, right, because you're not losing games to 100% get that first pick. You're just kind of trying to get more balls in the lottery, I guess. And you could come in last and have a bunch more lottery balls than everyone else, but still not get that first pick. So it's hard to chase it 100%. I'm excited about that kid. So how about 3 for you?
Sixers and James Harden.
Interesting.
So this is kind of, a continuation of a Brooklyn thought with him going to the Sixers. So he put in a bunch of effort this summer. He looks like he's back in shape. As I started going through some of these rosters, there's a common theme for the teams that are in contention, alleged contention, is that you've got a solid big 3, and then you've got these sort of entry-level guys that are filling the rosters, where you've drafted in the mid-teens or you had something in the early 20s that you hit. The Sixers are interesting for me because they have that decent balance, kind of like the Celtics, although they're a little bit older. They're big three, Tobias, Embiid. You never know what's going to go on with his feet, but he's,
and then obviously
I don't want to trash on that, and then he's I think he's 33 years old. I'm kind of curious to see where the Sixers are going to land this year. I know that's sort of a boring take for number 3, but they're going to be at the top of the East. Can they get it together? Is Harris a good number 3? Will the rest of that roster kind of hold on to press the Celtics, to press Miami? And then you got Milwaukee. So I'm curious to see where the Sixers go this year. Are they going to be our main competition?
Well, there's a lot of people that thought Embiid could have won the MVP last year. His numbers were certainly up there, probably just not quite enough to get it done, and it didn't ultimately get done. But, I don't know if he's back. He seemed to care about stuff like that, so I don't know if that motivates him to come back, play harder, put himself in a position to win it. They definitely were a team that I expected more from last year, was legitimately scared of them as a competitor, but they just didn't ultimately have what it took in the playoffs. Another year goes by, more time with James Harden, and I think it could be a little bit different, so I'm interested to see as well.
So, what do you got?
Number 3 for me. Let's see. For me, it's the Warriors, dude. I'm interested I was surprised when they won it all. Not in the playoffs and in the finals. They were clearly the better team the way they were playing. But I was surprised that they were in that position last year. I mean, Steph is amazing. I used to think Steph was the worst, and he was so dramatic after he hit a 3, and he'd take his mouthpiece out and roll it around his mouth, and it seemed like it was such a big deal. He hit these 3s, and I'm like, this guy sucks. But now I'm the biggest Steph guy. I think he's the freaking absolute man. But I'm surprised that they were as good as they were last year, and they won it all. And a whole year goes by. Everyone's a little bit older. There's some discontent on the team with the Draymond Green and Jordan Poole fight scenario that just happened. Can they come out of the West? I don't think the West is that strong. So yeah, there's a good chance they could.
I'm wondering about Poole because you probably noticed it in the finals last year where it's that guy came in and it was a spark guy. I'm kind of hoping that's what Brogdon is for the Celtics coming off the bench. I know he's not as energetic, Brogdon, as Poole, but Draymond just smacking this kid right in the face. It makes you wonder if Poole's going to come back with that swag. And I guess you're in the NBA and you set that aside and it shouldn't affect you. But if you're a high energy guy, you're running your mouth all the time. That's sort of your shtick. That's kind of what gets you to go. I don't know. I hope that Draymond didn't take a little bit of that power from him, if you will, because that kid's big for that roster. Because really, what's coming off of that bench? Iggy. I mean, they got Wiseman coming back this year. He missed the whole year last year. You got guys getting a little bit older on that roster. And look, I'm not trashing on the Warriors. I debated in my 1 through 5 to talk about it. I actually anticipated you putting it in there.
Really?
So
yeah.
But yeah, they stomped us.
They really did.
They stomped us. Curry. Oh,
dude, he is. Awesome. We've talked about it before. I am just so amazed at how he shoots a basketball. I don't really quite understand it. And his warm-up routines and what that guy can do with a basketball. I mean, I've seen videos of him hitting freaking 53s in a row. It's like, what? What am I even looking at right now? He's so much better than everybody else. And there's been some amazing shooters over the years. He's so much better than all of them. It's incredible. So, and he seems like a pretty good dude too. Seems like a good leader, good teammate, good person. So in the world of guys like Kyrie and some other knuckleheads out there, it's kind of cool to root for a guy that seems like a decent enough guy.
I think that's big because young kids are watching these guys, and he's an excellent role model. So I agree with that 1,000%. I like the weird stuff he does where he looks up and he touches and none of that stuff's for me. But then again, I grew up in the 90s. Coaches yelled at us if we actually breathed a little too loud. So I don't want to be like an old guy, trashing on that too much. I could do without some of that, but for the most part, that kid's amazing. Curry's
freaking awesome. And Clay has always loved Clay. I probably came around to Clay before I liked Curry. And I think that dude's just so cool, man. It's fun watching him shoot. And those guys playing together, I hope he has a better year this year. I know he came back last year. He'd missed a bunch of time. I hope he has a great year. We'll see.
I have this weird fixation. There's this guy on the web that mimics people shooting form and how they walk, and
I've seen this
like Curry. I am so fixated on how Thompson sort of swags it out when he's running through after he scores a bucket, especially, because I watched his old man play for the Lakers in the 80s. His old man was a 7-footer, no coordination, in my opinion, just a bruiser. And here's his young son just flying around, buckets on buckets on buckets. I mean, excellent shooter. We talk about Curry. Man, if that kid didn't get hurt, Thompson, what's that look like the last couple of years for the Warriors?
If it wasn't for Curry, Clay would be the best shooter in the NBA. Right? He's an amazing shooter on his own, historically as well. And yeah, it's weird when you're behind the best of all time, but he's made a hell of a name for himself too. Didn't he put like 40 points in a quarter once, or something ridiculous like that? That's insane.
I think he has the NBA record. Somebody could fact check me. I think it's 14 threes.
Yeah.
That's insane to me. Like, I mean, the record for the longest time was 8, and then it went to 11. I remember when Brian Shaw pushed it to 11. I was like, Brian Shaw shot 11 threes.
Totally.
Made 11 threes. Now it's like 14. Where is this number going to?
Probably shot 20. I don't know if we were talking. I was talking about this with someone, but I've been watching The Last Dance again lately.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, like awesome job.
It's awesome.
And I was at the episode where Jordan hit the 6 threes against the Blazers, 92 finals, and that was an NBA record at the time. 6 3-pointers. Everyone was going insane. And these guys hit 6 3-pointers a quarter now every game. It's no big deal. So,
MJ, I watched that game when it was on.
Yeah.
I hate to admit, by the way, for everyone watching, how many games that I've watched live that I remember, and I remember what happened in quarters and minutes and how many fouls. Like, I'm insanely weird with that stuff.
Yeah.
I think he hit 5 in the first half, and that one on Uncle Cliff where he kind of shrugs to Marv Albert as he's walking by. It was like, can you imagine a guy celebrating now for 5 first-half 3-pointers?
I know. It was like a national holiday after he did that. It was incredible.
But yeah, good topic with the Warriors. I have to say that I think I do have an opinion on this, but it really sways back and forth. I don't know who's deeper, the East or the West. The Warriors have some work to get out of the West again.
I was looking at the odds as well. I feel like I like the East better. I think it's a little bit more competitive. But yeah, the Warriors aren't going to just walk out of there. I'm interested to see who you're picking out of the West, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, they have some teams to watch out for.
Yeah.
All right, so we are at year number 2. What do we got?
We're at 3, I think, right?
No, we just did Sixers, Harden.
Oh yeah, sorry, number 2. Sorry, Randy. I'll let you do the math from here on out. Luka. Let's talk about Luka.
Okay.
So, can you guess? I'm going to bring this up again. I was looking at roster depth, the top tier teams, and Luka was just this topic for me. I don't know where I'm going to go with this on number 2, but one of the areas that I want to start is I have salaries up for the rosters for Dallas.
Okay.
The second highest salary on that team is $20 million. So Luka makes $37 million. I'd pay Luka $137 million. This kid's amazing. Who do you think the second best? Well, might be the second best player on the team making $20 million.
I honestly don't know. I don't even know much about their roster. I wanted to put Dallas in here somewhere, but I just don't know enough about their team. I just don't think they're having good players. So who is it?
Well, it's Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah.
That's probably their $20 million. Davis Bertans making $16 million. Yeah. Tim Hardaway Jr., old man Tim, crossover Tim, drafted by the Warriors. His son is making $19 million. Like, I'm looking at this roster. Christian Wood. Who's Christian Wood? He's making $14 million.
They have to get some people around him. Some like legit players. Dinwiddie's like a bench guy. He's like a 6-man guy. can't even believe he makes $20 million. NBA is insane with that stuff.
So here's what's going to happen with this, and I think ultimately where my thought is going with number 2, Luka. I don't know if that's a good number 2. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm teasing this the correct way. I'm going to piggyback my number 2 with yours. Okay, go for it.
Real quick. And it was like guys that are going to really make the leap this year. And I had Luka in that category, although some people might say he's already made that leap, but I still look at him as a guy. He hasn't won MVP, hasn't taken his team that far in the playoffs. He was a little frisky in the playoffs this year, but like, is he going to make the leap? Guys like, and leap is different for everybody. Like the leap for me is him like making it to the championship or really being like a top something MVP. But like you have a guy like Tatum already taken his team to the championship, but he made all the NBA too, but it still seems like he has a level to go. Is a guy like John Morant going to make a leap this year? Guy's an absolute stud player. A guy like Zion, is he going to come back from being hurt? Is he going to make a real leap to be an impact player in the NBA, living up to that hype that people had for him? Lastly, a guy like Trae Young, right? He's been a stud for the Hawks, but you have these young guys that are all 4, 5, 6 years in the NBA. Are those guys ready to get up there on the level with the LeBrons, KDs, the Giannis's, the Kawhis? So I don't know, that whole batch there, and I guess the reason I piggyback off it is because Luka's kind of in there for me.
Yeah, if I wish that someday this podcast is as big as any podcast. I wish I had Stephen A. clout, because you mentioned Jason Tatum. I'll get back to Luka for a second. The amount of, I don't want to call it princess because I love the kid. When you talk about a leap, you cannot, and I don't care if it was a shoulder, an elbow, I don't care if he had a knee that was broken. What I witnessed in the NBA Finals, I often, and I hate to say this, I think he has too much Paul George in him, Tatum.
Yeah.
It drives me insane because you want to see him go from here to here. And the NBA Finals was such a great place to do it. And it's he had a few moments, he made that basket against Brooklyn to win it in game 1 at home. That's cool. But it's man, you're getting to the NBA Finals. Go Steph Curry on it,
His effort was so bad. So disappointing. I hope it doesn't define his career. I hope he has an opportunity to bounce back. I hope it's in a Boston uniform, and I have a feeling we'll get to that in a couple seconds. But it's really disappointing, the performance that he had. And it's one thing to lose in the NBA Finals to an all-time great team. I consider the Warriors to be a dynasty, although people's definition is different. That's a great team. Hard to feel really that bad about losing to them. But when you factor in the way your number one player, your all-NBA guy played, it was pretty piss poor.
It was. So, Luka. Yeah, sorry. Just getting back to that, I watched Charles Barkley play with guys when he was first drafted, he had Dr. J, he had a couple other, Andrew Toney, Jeff Rulin, a couple other dudes. I could keep going on and on for our older guys listening to the pod. But then it was just Johnny Dawkins, a couple other guys for years. And the narrative with Barkley was, all right, is he ever going to get a championship? He eventually gets moved out. I mean, the Sixers do. They're you know what? We are absolutely terrible at putting good talent around him. We're miring in middle of the East. We're picking in the mid-teens. We're not helping him. We're not drawing any free agents. Back to Luka. How do you have a program like what Mark Cuban runs? One of the best facilities, 27 million coaches, everything provided for everything that you need.
A tax-free state.
Tax-free.
Which is something for these guys, right? Texas is one of those places.
Dude, if you like money and you don't want to give money to the government, yeah.
It's a big, I doubt that's ever a deciding factor for people, but people say it's a reason that they go to Texas or Florida is that lack of state income tax. So, there's a lot of things that make Dallas a great place to play. It's not like he's trying to get people to Cleveland or Minnesota or something like that.
So, you know what I mean? It's number 2 on my list. How does my list look right now if I'm putting a Luka narrative on number 2? I want to jump ahead a little bit. I actually think there might be some trouble brewing in this Dallas Luka scenario because he is so talented enough where they will be on the fringe of the playoffs. They might make the playoffs. They'll draft in the 20s. What are you going to put around him? And eventually, is he going to look at Mark and he's going to be like, Mark, dude, it's been a good run for us. But, trade me over to this team. You could get 3 prospects right now, 4 first-round draft picks, and I could actually do something in the playoffs.
Totally.
It kind of, the basketball connoisseur that I am, it sucks for me that kid is in Dallas with those teammates. There you go.
Yep. Look forward to seeing what happens in his career because he's one of those guys that could be an all-timer when it's all said and done.
Yep.
All right, number 1, pal. I think we might have something similar for number 1, so why don't you get started?
The Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
Your number 1?
Yeah, definitely. Celtics, everything revolving around them leading up to the season. what I expect for the season, yeah, they're definitely my number one. I think they're very interesting, regardless of the fact that we happen to be big Boston fans. Like, I think they're an interesting team.
So you have that Tatum stuff that we just talked about.
Yeah.
We just lost. So we've lost, I think, 2 out of our last 3 championships. 2 of them to the Lakers. One in the 80s, 87, I believe. The 2010, where I lost my mind at your house and I left early because I knew a minute and a half to go. I'd seen this before. I couldn't handle it. I went home. I was a baby. I was Chris. Then we lose to the Warriors. Some positives from there. Mm-hmm. I think the bench needed help. So we get Brogdon. We just ship out a couple dudes. Nothing big.
Brogdon is such a good signing. I'm so excited about having him come off the bench. Awesome. Great signing. Yeah. It was a trade, actually, my bad.
Yeah, it was a trade. And then we got Gallinari.
Awesome.
Yeah, sneaky. Like, he's a big, too. He's kind of a bruiser. And when I say a big, he's not like your 7-foot bang with guys. But in today's, sort of everybody fits everywhere type of climate on the basketball court, he could bang with some guys and he could hit some threes. Oh, my God. Shooting off the bench, and we have somebody to distribute the basketball in Brogdon. Awesome. Best case scenario. Yeah. Take it from there, man.
Yeah, you have to be really excited about those 2 signs because it's kind of what we needed, right? We have some good guys on our team. We needed some depth, needed some shooting, and you think you have those 2 pieces added with what we have. We didn't really lose much, like you said, and let's go, right? Let's get the season started, and then all of a sudden, Gallinari's playing in that a celebrity game with LeBron, goes up to contest a shot, freaking knee injury. People unsure if it's a meniscus or if it's something where it's only going to be a few months, but nope, it's a tear, and guy's out for the season. So what the hell? We should have known at that point that things are not going to get any better, or they're going to get worse before they got better. From there, I don't know if we found out before or after. I think after that, Robert Williams was going to miss a good part of the front end of the season, right? Going back in for surgery. I don't think they expect him till the new year, right? I don't think he'll be back till after the holidays.
There's some stuff where it was 4 to 6 weeks, but I read recently where he's still walking around with a crutch. Mm-hmm. Not 4 to 6 weeks. No. Yeah.
So, we need him, and that's okay, right? Let's get this out of the way. Early NBA season doesn't matter that much. We need him healthy for the playoffs, but still not a great sign. Another strike against us, or one of those things we just kind of have bad karma on. And then everything that happened with Ime a couple weeks ago, it's God damn it, you think you have one of the best upcoming coaches in the NBA, and obviously he got what he deserved. It sounds like, right? We don't really know the details, but it had to happen the way it happened. But man, it's just a bummer to really feel like you're in a good position after a couple of those trades heading into the season, and then these 3 things happen, and here we are a week before the season. We have an interim coach and kind of some bad vibes going on.
I'm gonna spin this positive for a second, but I'm gonna play a little bit of woe is me here. Why can't we have nice things when it comes to the Boston Celtics? Everybody that knows you and I, Randy, knows that Tom Brady, we are so lucky to have Brady. We've got, 4 championships with the Red Sox, so that's cool. Bruins threw one in there. Celtics got one in there. But deep down, as much as I love Brady throwing touchdowns and winning Super Bowls, I'm a Celtics guy. Mm-hmm. Give me the Celtics all day, every day. Since the 80s, we had that horrible run in the 90s. We missed out on Duncan. We had Reggie die.
You should have had Duncan that year. Kind of for the reason we were talking about before. You get the most ping pong balls, and that does not guarantee you. I think we ended up getting, Mercer and Billups that year?
Yes, we did, yeah. So you have 2 picks, I think, in the top 5, and you're like, okay, but it's still not Duncan. We just need things to break for us. Yeah, it's actually surprising that we even got that Ray Allen trade, which kind of led to the Garnett situation. But stuff like that doesn't happen that often. The Tatum thing was maybe one of those scenarios where things kind of work out in our favor, but it seems like it's an uphill battle for whatever reason. So I don't want to be negative, but it's a couple of things. It's in the late 80s, you get lucky to draft Reggie. Reggie's sort of taking over for Bird. Naturally, Reggie dies. 86, you swindle the Seattle Supersonics. I believe we traded Gerald Henderson when they needed a point. We got a future first, and we end up drafting Len Bias. So it's you put in Bias with Bird McHale, interject some youth. Then you get lucky and get Reggie. Bias and Reggie are taking over. I don't know why I'm doing this stuff with my hands, but I'm starting to feel it. So you have these things that happen that could have sort of turned over. And as a basketball fan, my viewing pleasure, I'm kind of stripped of that. And you even mentioned Jason Tatum, since I'm feeling it right now. one of those little things is that Danny, by the way, Danny to me is a genius, but a lot of things didn't play out the way that he wanted them to. He got lucky that Miami didn't trade for the lefty there. I forget his name. A couple of years ago, we were going to give up a treasure chest of picks, but the Tatum thing, like, we know ball's going first. We know that the Sixers needed a point false. So, like, we swindle that trade. We get a future first that was from Memphis. Memphis hadn't been out of the lottery for a decade. So not
and here we are.
We get Tatum, and I'm like, Jesus, I don't want to swear, but I'm like, Jesus Christ, this pick actually can convert pretty nicely. So there's like future assets. Same thing when we got rid of Jeff Green. Sorry, I'm going off on this. But,
no, I love it.
Dude, Jeff Green, we traded a future first. Granted, it was somewhat protected from Memphis. And all of a sudden, the year that we converted that, naturally they're in the playoffs. So
it's a crap pick.
So it's like I've sort of gone down this rabbit hole of what could have been, and I know I've kind of mentioned some random things here. Chris, get to your point. So Gallinari, yeah, that sucks. Okay, that sucks.
Yep.
Brogdon, awesome. Williams, man. I got to tell you, I'm going to spin a positive on the Ime thing.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a question. If you're watching the Warriors and Celtics as much as you did, right? I know you were locked in like I was.
Definitely.
How many times can you run your two best players at the top of the key, mind you, when they are exhausted, and mind you, when they have Clay and, a lot of times Curry was out there switching, everything's interchangeable, but you have two bigs, Tatum and Brown. Granted, they can control the basketball. Brown so much, sometimes he looks like he's on ice skates. How do you not put those dudes in the post? How do you not back up Clay? How do you not exhaust Clay? How do you not get a couple fouls on Clay early and Steph? So spinning it with Ime, like, look, I'm just Chris Bedard. I do mortgages. I've raised my daughter. I'm married. I get it. What the hell do I know? But, dude, how many screen and rolls are you running? How many times are you running 4 out, 1 in? Put those dudes in the post. Go beat up on somebody. Change it up. In-game adjustments. Doc Rivers was amazing at it.
Yeah.
Shout out to Doc.
Yeah, so this could be I don't want to say it's a good thing because I don't think it's necessarily a good thing karma-wise, chemistry-wise, but it might not be as bad as I initially thought. Like that, this new interim coach could be good for the team, could unite the team. So it has a really bad feeling at this point where you're heading into the season and you're just like, you got to be kidding me, right? Like, so I'm excited about the season. I'm excited about the chemistry of our guys. I'm excited that they made it where they did in the playoffs, tasted it, ultimately lost. I mean, Jordan didn't win his finals his first few years, right? I mean, he had a progression of making it to the playoffs, losing early rounds, making it to the Eastern Conference Finals, losing, never lost in the finals, but still, like, there's a learning curve to all that stuff. So I'm interested to see how the guys bounce back. I'm a big Marcus Smart fan now. I just like his energy. I'll never like him shooting those threes. Those no, yes threes when he makes them. Like, I'll never like that, but like, love the intensity. Just love what he brings on the court. Yeah, Jalen can't dribble for hell, but he's a fun player to watch. Tatum, I'm hoping we can forget about that stuff. And then Williams, I think, is going to be a really good center in this league. So I like what we have. We just keep throwing in the pieces, and we'll run it back and see what happens. It's a long season.
Williams, to me, has this, like, Capella type of ceiling, high screen and rolls. Maybe in the text string you saw it. I think Williams needs to learn how to do the Gronk thing after Gronk had his knee shredded a couple times. It's like, you notice with Gronk when he's catching seam passes before he retired the last couple of years, like he caught balls now and he looked. Yeah. Like, who's coming? Gronk's aware of this time. Where I'm going with that is like, dude, you don't need to jump at everything. Like, you're 24 years old. I get it. You're a pogo stick, but like, you clearly have some knee issues. Sit out a couple plays here, man. It's a long season.
Preserve. Definitely. It is a long season. So it could all work out to our benefit. Like we said, it's a long season. Playoffs don't start till the springtime, right? People will hopefully be healthy by then. A lot of this bad karma stuff will be behind us. It's the reason I put them number one, man. I think they're a great team. I think they have just as good of a chance coming out of the East as anyone else. It'll just be interesting to see how they bounce back after what's been a tough stretch for the past 4 or 5 months. But nothing like when they're good, man. Like you said, love seeing Tom. win championships. And I'm probably more of a football guy than a basketball guy ultimately, but I do love basketball, do love the C's. That stretch when Garnett, Pierce, and Allen were together, that was fun, man. Didn't get a taste of the Bird stuff that you might have caught the tail end of, but that was fun. Last year was fun. Going to those Eastern Conference Championship game, watching the Celtics every other night, that was great, man. Nothing like that. So hoping for more of that.
A little bit of a narrative too with Boston. It's you talk about that demographic and who would want to come to Boston and stuff. I've never really thought that we had enough cap space other than the Horford year, and then and I didn't mention it with Gordon Hayward in the rant about why can't we have nice things. We've signed free agents, but man, you mentioned KG. KG to me made Boston cool. Not that matters in the long run, but there was something there with KG, and you and I ran into each other so many times at Celtics games, which was so odd. But the electricity in the building when KG just slammed his chest, dropped a couple of MFers, and it's I want that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I want that back with Tatum and Brown. But a couple of quick things with the Celtics before we move on. It's now that we're missing Williams, now that Gallinari's gone, it's are you leaning a little bit too much on Horford? Probably not, because he's got a lot of miles on his body. So how does that look? Are we really just kind of running 2, 3, 4 fours out there? You know what I mean? And every now and again, when we're running into the Embiids of the world, we're going to get pasted. I don't know how this looks.
Horford was awesome last year in the playoffs. I'm interested to see what he has left in the tank. Part of me felt like it was a last hurrah thing for him. That's why I felt good about them having a chance to win it for Horford, because I don't know that he can repeat some of his performances. Definitely can't do it on a nightly basis, but I don't know. I'll be interested to see what he has in the tank. He's a great locker room dude. Like that guy a lot.
And I think one last thing is the White. When we got Derek White last year, it kind of seemed like he was pressing a little bit. I'm excited for year 2 White. I guess he worked a little bit on the hitch on his jump shot. You know me, I'm a big Instagram guy, so I've been creeping the Celtics practice highlights. His shot does look different, but I'm curious to see how the Brogdon White coming off the bench, or maybe one of them starts, depending on this 4-5 matchup, depending on who you're playing every night. There's a lot of redundancy in some areas, so I'm curious to see how it all fits. And then lastly, shout out to PP, Pritchard. I love this kid. I don't know how he's going to get on the court. It bums me out.
Yeah, something's got to give with the Brogdon signing. So it'll be tough, but it's good to have him. He can light a spark once in a while. All right, so that's our top 5. It's a solid top 5, man. Gets me a little bit fired up for the season. Just to recap, we both had a variation of LeBron and the Lakers at 5. You had running back with the Nets on the 4th. I had the Alien Watch with Victor Wembanyama, who's tanking for him. You had the Sixers in the 3rd spot. I had Warriors. We both had Luka / guys making the leap, and then the Celtics number 1. So pretty similar, actually. You sneaking the Brooklyn Nets in there, and the Sixers maybe a little bit surprising, but love it, dude. It's a great list.
What's that kid's name?
Victor Wembanyama. So it's going to be a tough one to say, dude. He's going to have to get a good nickname to kind of shorten that up a little bit, but Victor Wembanyama.
I don't think I'm using the kid's name until we have a good nickname.
Yeah, I might just call him Victor. There's not a whole lot of big Victors out there, so I think if you just say Victor, people might just know who you're talking about, but we'll see.
We'll see.
All right, moving on. We are going to make some predictions. Eastern Conference, Western Conference, NBA Finals champ, MVP. Why don't we start with the team predictions? We'll actually end with MVP. So who do you have coming out of the West?
Man, I mean, it's sitting here on my phone on all the notes that I wrote. I went roster to roster. I went top 5 teams. I broke it down, the top 3s on each one of these teams. I looked at the back half of the rosters. I looked at some of the salary cap flexibility. You could go anywhere. You could go Suns, but I think Chris Paul getting older is never a good thing. Booker never plays a consistent amount of games. Ja Morant, I mean, the energy and the balls on that kid,
wow.
You just look at that roster and it's just man, there's not a lot of help there, but that kid is good enough. As much as I like Luka, I don't think he's got teammates to help him. Minnesota's kind of sneaky now. They got Rudy, they got Bennett, they got Cat. Those dudes are working out. Again, Instagram creep on Chris Bedard's part.
You know who else is good? New Orleans. New Orleans has some pieces. Like they're between Ingram and Zion and McCollum. Like it's crazy to say, that they would come out of the West, but they can make some noise.
Well, I don't think it's unrealistic. I was kind of going to get there. That's a solid team, man. That's a really good team. So it's like that Western Conference, and I really sat against the East, and I was like, what side is harder? I really don't have the answer. We're going to go with the Warriors. And
dude, all that stuff you just said, and then still pick the Warriors, that's love it, dude. Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to draw a comparable here. 87 Celtics. McHale, foot injury. Danny Ainge twisted his ankle every other day. Robert Parrish smoking a lot of weed, no big deal, but also twisting ankles while he was doing it. They somehow got through that Eastern Conference that year to lose to a very motivated Magic Johnson. I don't know why I'm going down this history lesson for everyone, but it sort of has that feel for me. Curry, because he pulled a Bird season, 87 Bird was awesome. 86 Bird was awesome. 87, 88 Bird was also awesome, but he was carrying his dudes. He's got Klay Thompson back. Draymond, he just punched his teammate, but I really like the potential in that Poole kid. Wiseman's coming back. I looked at that roster and I'm like, man, if they just actually stay healthy, I mean, they're going to casually win probably 52 to 55 games. Mm-hmm. Hopefully they're healthy getting into the playoffs, and then just dudes like Curry just go from here to here. So 87 Celtics comparable, Warriors coming out of the West. I hope I'm severely wrong so everybody can shit on me, but I think I'm going to be right. Randy, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny, dude. I actually took the Warriors too. And I did not want to take the Warriors. But here are the odds for the teams coming out of the West. Warriors are plus 600, so they're the favorite. Clippers are plus 600, right? So right there with them. I can't trust that team, right? I can't trust Kawhi. I mean, they might be good, and maybe they'll surprise all of us, and good for them if they do. But, can't trust Kawhi.
No.
And there seems to be something wrong with that roster, with that team. I can't pick them, at least until I see them perform well this year. Maybe pick them next year. Phoenix are next at plus 1,200. I feel like Phoenix missed their window, right? Ayton didn't do what he needed to do in the playoffs. I already said what you said about Paul, Booker. Booker's a great player, great young player, maybe even in that conversation for making a leap. But I think they missed their window. So I just can't pick them out of good conscience. Next is Nuggets plus 1,800.
Oh, yeah.
Jokic doesn't even come up in this whole podcast. It's kind of a boring player, but obviously a stud.
Yeah.
Jamal Murray's coming back.
Yeah.
Pick them over the Warriors? I don't know, man. I don't think it's that close. And the Lakers are actually plus 1,800, and that just might be public money. Teams I like more are teams like Grizzlies, New Orleans. Those teams are a couple years away, maybe, right? For being in my mind, right, where I think the Warriors are there. They have all-time best players, got some pieces back, showed that they could do it this past year. It's hard for me to not pick them. I hate picking the most highly favored team, but that's what I'm thinking for the West.
Randy, I looked at the odds too. I have to give some love to the Nuggets, getting their point guard back. They got Porter back. That's actually a sneaky decent team. Actually, I should have mentioned that. When I was doing my research, I was kind of looking at that, and I was like, can I ever take the Nuggets serious? Same thing with the Clippers. Yeah. To me, Paul George, I kind of compared Tatum to Paul George. A lot of times I say Tatum has some Paul George in him. Paul George, back in the day when Miami got together, Paul George went into Miami and put up a bang biscuit of a game, beat Miami, and then the next game I think he had 12 points. How do you take that serious? And I hope that Tatum doesn't end up being Paul George.
Yep.
But, Jesus, I'm going back to hammering on Tatum again. I should stop doing that, but I don't know.
Both landed on the same thing. They have a good team, so
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. That's who I would expect to make the finals at this point. So how about Eastern Conference for you?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, I will start. I actually think the East is more competitive. Let me read you the odds for who makes the finals out of the East. Celtics plus 275, so they're a pretty heavy favorite. Bucks plus 325, Brooklyn plus 400, Miami plus 800, Philly plus 850. Then it gets to the Cavs at 1,200 and a couple other teams beyond that. I feel like those are all pretty good teams. Brooklyn
Those are really
aside,
good
because we already talked about them, don't know what they can do. But, like, Celtics, Bucks, Heat, Sixers, those are some pretty good teams with some stud players. Love the Celts. For all the concerns that I previously addressed, I can't pick them to make it. Bucks, I actually think would have made it this year if Middleton was playing. Like, they're a good team. Giannis is unbelievable. Like, the fact that we got out of that series ahead was remarkable. I could definitely see them. So I was inclined to pick them, but I'm actually going to take the Heat. And it's
okay. All right.
This Heat guy. I'm not a Jimmy Butler guy. I was just so impressed with them last year. I thought they played their asses off defensively, made big shots. I know they didn't add any super huge pieces, but, like, I think they're a frisky team and a pretty competitive Eastern Conference. I'm going to take the Heat, see what happens.
So I'm not going to come at you for that thought. When I was looking over the Heat roster, I had this. Tell me what you think of this. Well, you probably won't think the same thing as me because you picked them, but, like, you look at the Phoenix Suns and who's running point for them.
Lowry.
The Lowry factor.
Yeah.
Like, how much does he have left?
Not much.
Not much. So it's like, you hope he came into camp in shape. I don't know. I haven't seen anything on them, but you're right. Bam. You got Butler.
Jimmy.
Yeah. It's like,
Dragic.
well, Dragic was on the team, but also, like, Tyler. We got lucky. Tyler was a little banged up. We got lucky that the point was banged up. So it's like, they actually are scrappy. It kind of reminds me of, like, some of those IT Celtics teams where it's like they just threw a bunch of dudes at you that ran around nonstop and hustled and outplayed everybody. Jimmy,
they're well coached. They're in a position to make a move in the season. Like, they could get somebody. I definitely think it's a long shot bet. But when I pick the Warriors out of the West, like, I can't just pick the Celtics or the Bucks out of the East because it really, for me, it came down to Heat Bucks, and I'm just gonna roll the dice on the Heat. They played their ass off. They could have easily went to the finals last year.
Yep. So I picked the Celtics.
Wow.
Surprise. Shock, right? Teams that
that Mac Jones conversation, the Patriots didn't carry any weight with, like, you not picking. Okay.
Yeah, no, guys, I'm going to double down. Look, feel free to hammer on me if these predictions looked terrible. Teams that I thought could beat the Celtics. Middleton being back with the Bucks. The Bucks, I think, are such an issue. Shout out real quick to Grant Williams, how he played the Greek. I worry about what Robert Williams looks like, along with Horford being able to handle the Greek. So ultimately, here's my Celtics thought, but it's contingent upon a couple of things. And we need somebody to cover or try to cover the Greek. Because ultimately, if I'm wrong with my Celtics thought, I'm going Greek. Okay?
I think we both have some respect for the Bucks. There's no doubt about that.
I'm probably going Greek. Bucks, I'm probably going Miami behind them because I just think they're better coached. I love Doc, but I think they're better than the Sixers, and I think the Sixers are behind it. So Celtics, Bucks, Miami, Sixers, and then where do you go from there? I don't know. But so who's your NBA final winner?
I would say the Warriors again. Which is wild, man. I can't believe I would even say that, but, like, it's just, I don't know, dude. It's crazy. But that's how could I pick the Heat? They would kind of be my upset team to even make it to the finals. It's the Warriors to lose, man.
So I'm going to steal something that you said earlier, like the leap scenario. With everything that's going on in Boston, I think Jalen's better. I think his athleticism. I think he's just got that Jimmy Butler type of body.
You are the biggest homer. God, I love you.
So homer. But I think he's going to be that much better. I think Tatum is going to be a little bit of a princess still, but I think he gets that much better. I'm hoping Robert comes back. I'm liking the Brogdon stuff. Grant Williams with a hezzy and an inside-out dribble the other day in a preseason game. I was like, what? That kid does that? All right. Peyton Pritchard, hopefully he gets on the floor. Derek White shots changed. Like, let me just pour all of this homer juice on everything that I'm saying. I'm going to go with the Boston Celtics. That's my NBA Finals champion final answer.
Love it, dude. It would be a hell of a story if they went from where they were last year to all the stuff that happened in the offseason to making it out of the East to begin with. If they make it to the finals and win, that means Tatum had a hell of a bounce back year. It'd be awesome. Love it. So
I mean, the roster has some depth, but I think if we have a major injury, so that's Tatum or Brown, like I'm going to default to Milwaukee beats the Warriors.
yeah. Okay, like it. All right, MVP. Who do you got?
Luka, not sexy pick. Jokic, I don't think he's going to get his third in a row. There's so many other guys you could put in front of this. You've mentioned odds a bunch of times. Embiid, bunch of guys are on that list.
I'll tell you the odds, right?
Okay, hit me.
Luka plus 450, Embiid plus 500, Giannis 550, Durant 1,000, Jokic 1,000, Tatum 1,200, Steph Curry 1,300. Then it kind of goes from there.
Luka's number one on that list.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like that guy that's next up, right? Like it's almost like a narrative takes hold, and people will it into existence of him being the MVP, right? Like he's going to put up the stats, and Giannis already has a couple, Jokic already has a couple. Yeah, I'll tell you, my pick is going to be Embiid for this year because I feel like he's one of those guys too that also has like this narrative of having a great year last year, and I feel like voters take that into account. Like, not that he got robbed last year, but some people could say he deserved it last year, so now we're going to give it to him this year if he has an equal or slightly better year. So I feel like it's really going to come down to one of those two guys because it can't be Giannis again, it can't be Jokic again. Is it really going to be a guy like Durant? Is it really going to be a guy like Tatum, Curry? There's some guys on the lower end. I mean, look at these crazy odds of guys like Karl Anthony Towns plus 5,000, Donovan Mitchell plus 5,000, Harden plus 7,000, DeMar DeRozan plus 8,000. I mean, these guys aren't going to win it. LeBron's plus 1,800. That's if he had a bonkers year, but I really feel like it does come down to one of those two guys just because people feel like it's their time, and they've earned it.
Yeah, I don't dislike your Embiid. Sometimes I wonder, Randy, is like a guy that needs a basketball as much as Harden does. What does it take away from Embiid? Yeah. You know what I mean? But I fully expect that kid to come out beast mode and make a big push. But yeah, going Luka.
Yeah, all right. Love it, dude. Some good picks. A little bit of overlap, but ultimately pretty different, I would say. So I'm anxious to see how it shakes out. I hope you win. I hope you got it right. Celtics take the championship. That'd be ideal, but we'll see.
It would be best case scenario. I'm just hoping. I mean, 2008's a long time ago, man. 2022, give me another one. I'm ready.
I love to call you out for your homework when I do a post about this on social media, so be ready. I'll tag you.
Pats are going to make the playoffs.
Pats are going to win a game in the playoffs. Okay.
Good pick, Chris. Thanks, guys.
Great. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, guys, for coming. But all right, dude. Well, that was a ton of fun, as always. Love it.
All right, buddy. Thanks for having me.